Hi, so I'm Hervé Correille. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Schneider Electric.
So the augmented reality, what I saw would be perhaps a one of your field workers might go out to a machine and using, say, a Surface computer would have an image. Describe what that looks like from the worker's perspective.
The whole idea is augmenting the worker,
Yeah.
right? So augmenting their capability. So give them the ability to understand what's inside a box without having to open that box. If you know what's inside, if you have in real time the operating parameters, you can understand whether you need to perform a maintenance operation or not. By augmenting workers, by augmenting operators, we are making the overall industrial operation more efficient.
So efficiency, sustainability, say something about predictive maintenance and forecasting.
So absolutely. So predictive maintenance, as I think for a while, being the killer app at the convergence of IoT
Yeah.
on AI. Of course, IoT gives you access to all those real world data, right? All those time series, and of course, AI allows you to ingest this data and develop models, inferences or learning, machine learning capabilities in order to reduce downtime. And in many of the heavy industrial processes, downtime is really a big impact on productivity. So if we can get it down to the strict minimum, if we can reduce the downtime by moving in terms of your maintenance paradigm, it's a wonderful impact on the bottom line for our customer.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that we write about in the book is sort of the ethical development of artificial intelligence, and we deal with things such as bringing the workforce along, making sure that there's a skilled workforce. Could you talk a little bit about how Schneider Electric thinks about its workforce and bringing the workforce along on this AI journey?
Sure. What AI brings, which is really interesting, is that it can, cause you to rethink the way you automate. I mean, traditionally, you used to take a big process, do some end-to-end, fairly heavy business process redesign. But what AI, I think, allows us is probably to go at the other end of a spectrum and look at how you automate at the level of a task, not the level necessarily of a full end-to-end processes. And then suddenly that's really interesting, because if you automate a task, you can actually, make certain aspects of the work of an individual less tedious, because something repetitive, you can sort of take care of it through AI, of course, but also how can we rethink the way we consider efficiency and automation and look at it as a way, to improve our efficiency at a task level, which is much more granular, faster, quicker ROI, right? On sort of 1,000 smaller victories versus, some very, very heavy redesign work. So we see there's a very interesting play, which is very core to our value, where we like, and I was mentioning the operator, we like to augment people, right? We like to complement more, and that's really so that people can really focus on what they're good at, on what humans are, better than machines still for a long time.
Right.
When you need empathy, customer relationships, etc. So that's really one, I think, of the big tenets for us. But of course, one of the things that we are working on with AI is really along explainability, right? Because think about it, right? If you're on an e-commerce site and the recommendation is the next book you're going to read, doesn't really matter to explain how that, how the neural net came to that particular recommendation. But if the decision you're recommending in an industrial context is to shut down or stop a manufacturing floor, that's a very different story. So here you need to understand, right, do all the sensitivity analysis and try to be able to explain to the operators why the model is reaching that decision. And that's one of the fields we're working on, is really, a better explainability on why the models, the algorithms, the classifiers are getting to such decisions versus another.